Australia's GDP could fall 5%. Let's have a look. Good afternoon, everyone. Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my afternoon stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from news.com.au. It's discussing, written by James Hall, it's discussing, well, calls to continue financial stimulus, because foreign organisations, the OECD, are warning that our GDP could fall by 5% amid the economic fallout of the pandemic. Now, a few things we need to consider, everyone. Our unemployment, it has shot up. Now, I know a lot of us don't like the ABS methodology. Personally, I prefer the Roy Morgan methodology of measuring unemployment. I honestly think combining unemployment and underemployment together should be the measurement that's talked about in the news. It should be something on the public consciousness, about 25% of the workforce. It's not good. But still, look at that growth. Look at that rise. Guys, good times. You know, we just eliminated 5 years worth of jobs. Right there. If you look at job ads, they have plummeted. And although they have increased by 0.5%, the latest data, they've hopefully bottomed out. Consumer confidence has shot up slightly, but it's still, and I haven't updated my chart, but it still is pretty low. Business confidence and conditions also are very low. And we're having the government stimulate the economy left, right, and centre. People are getting JobKeeper. There's a bonus to JobSeeker. You've got stimulus for the construction sector. You had free childcare, or you still have at the moment. They're doing whatever they can to ease this beginning of a recession. So it's not going to be sharp and hard. It's not going to be a band-aid that's pulled off. They're going to be a doting mother afraid to inflict any suffering on their precious little snowflake angel that we all know how that ends up. What happened to resilience being something looked upon with pride? With people appreciating that from adversity comes, well, success. You need to overcome adversity to achieve anything of meaning in your life. It's no different for a nation. No different for people. Nonetheless, let's have a look. A leading global economic body, Keynesian of course, has called on the Morrison government to extend stimulus packages past the September expiration date. And this is something, I'm asking all of you. Do you reckon they will maintain all of these interventions past September? Do you think they will pull JobKeeper away? It's anyone's guess if they'll keep going. I think they'll throw everything they can at housing because, well, that's Australia. That's what we do. We're different. Australia's different. We're not just a quarry on the edge of the world that's dependent on China for our big chunk of our tourism, for all of our big chunk of our mineral exports, for most of our imports. We're special. Wow, that analogy to a spoilt child really is appropriate, isn't it? So Australia is grappling with its first recession in decades, but a second wave of pandemic infections will drag its economy even lower and land a severe blow to the nation's employment rate, a leading economic body warns. Its GDP is forecast to fall by 5% this year, but the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development says a climb in cases as the country eases restrictions would stretch that to 6.3%. And there are just articles coming out about what's happened in Melbourne from the demonstrations, that now there have been 8 new reported cases. Just think about that. I was hoping that a lot of what we heard in the news, that cases of proven outdoor infection have been very low, might carry over to that, and then they could open up the economy more. But I guess when you're, really close to each other, marching, it's different to normal people doing outdoor activity. Me talking to my neighbor, kids going over there picking up pine cones to burn, me meeting with a client at a school. Those are different things. So, just think. A decline of GDP of 6.3% opposed to 5%. What do you think that will do to the economy? How many people do you think that increased decline, which if it's exacerbated by, let's say, a second wave brought upon by activists, how much damage do you think that will do to people's lives? Do people not realize the implications, the bigger picture? I'm starting to think they don't. I really am. Starting to think they don't. I don't think critical thinking is actually taught anymore or encouraged. We've got so much cultish thinking in our schools. You need to blindly follow. You need to follow, repeat, and obey. The international body credited the Morrison government's JobKeeper and other stimulus measures for containing the economic shock during the lockdown, but said fiscal support mechanisms needed to be extended past the September expiry date. And here's the problem, guys. If you have... We are intervening to the economy in such an extent that we're losing the feedback. So people aren't going to learn their lessons. And if you don't get feedback from when you do something wrong, what's going to happen? You're going to keep doing it. I think frankly, we've got too many Karens in our civilization. And that's why we can't take any hard times. And you need some creative destruction. I know it sounds harsh, everyone, but you need it. And sometimes being humbled can be the best thing that happens to someone. So this includes expanded loan guarantees once the bank's mortgage holidays end. The scarring effects of unemployment, especially for younger workers, should be alleviated through education and training, as well as enhanced job search programs, the OECD said. See, this is BS. They're just... What's happening? My mouse is broken here. They're just going to throw more money at education, more money at training for jobs that don't exist. So all they're doing is putting off the unemployment. And they'll have people take on debt. Sure, here in Australia, our education's largely subsidized. Let's hope it never winds up like America, where the government guarantees all their loans, so they're unbankruptable, and that's what's driving up the education costs over there. But sure, I mean that's a pipe dream. Honestly, it is a pipe dream. The authorities should be considering further stimulus that may be needed once existing measures expire at the end of the third quarter 2020. So here's the question: what do you think they'll do? Do you think they'll throw everything? I think they'll double down on housing. What? They're not smart enough. Well, they don't have... There's no political desire in our civilization to try innovation. And that's where at the polling booth at the next election, there needs to be a push for politicians that are pushing for new ideas. Because it's just the same. Or Liberal and Labour, the difference is tiny. Really, if you think about it. You know, it's which party, you know, do you want to align for? That depends on the Greens more. So such support should focus on improving resilience and social and physical infrastructure, including strengthening the social safety net and investing in energy efficiency and social housing. These are all the opposite of improving resilience. You don't become resilient if you don't have to overcome adversity. So if you set up safety nets and all these other things, social housing, how are you going to overcome it? How are you going to dust yourself off and climb back up? Or are they changing the meaning of words? So here's the unemployment rate. Here's the employment rate down. The OECD said Australia's recovery was leading the way in the developed world, but said it had ample fiscal space to splash on bolstering that return to normalcy post-pandemic. Unemployment has fallen to 6.2%, but a concerning participation rate and the reliance on both job seeker and job keeper means this is likely to rise sharply again towards the end of the year. The economic recovery would rely on a return to consumer sentiment once shoppers can go out and about, though high levels of household debt and a weakening in house prices could provide headwinds. And the thing is, I mean, we're what, the second most indebted nation on the planet? But it's also the wealth effect, that if your house is worth a lot, you've got all this equity in it, you feel Feel richer, and you've got to go hoity-toiting. I've got to keep up with the neighbours. Honey, we've got to buy that new ride-on lawnmower that we need. Oh, we need these 5 different subscriptions for the kids. Oh, every child needs their own iPad. Of course, little Jimmy needs to go to this school. Don't just take out another credit card. Just afterpay it. And it's not just economists calling for the extension of income support. With a recent survey by comparison site Finder revealing nearly 60% of Australians are concerned they won't be able to afford day-to-day expenses once stimulus is turned off. Well, a large portion of Australians don't even have $90 to their name, or that's all they have. So who cares? People need... Well, are people going to learn? How many people have not had any reserve, any emergency fund, and just went, and got saved from being homeless because of JobKeeper, or the bonus job seeker, or because of the memorandum to contain evictions? That'd be an interesting survey. Can we find that? Will people learn from this? The survey also found 70% fear a second wave of infections, the greatest concern among respondents. And that looks like, judging by what's happened in Melbourne, that may actually happen. Early this week, the World Bank warned the pandemic will see the global economy plunge into its deepest recession since World War II, forcing many millions into extreme poverty, according to the latest economic outlook. Global output will shrink by 5.2% in 2020. Economic activity among advanced economies is expected to shrink 7%, and emerging economies will contract by 2.5%, the steepest fall in 60 years. This is a direct result of the pandemic, which just saw a record new high in daily cases. Well, no, it's a direct result to shutting down the economy to mitigate the effects of it. That's what it is. Capitalism didn't suddenly fall apart. The governments forced people to close their business under threat of violence, under threat of losing your liberties. That's what it is. And yet other protests are allowed to go ahead. The pandemic has delivered an enormous global shock, leading to steep recessions in many countries, the report said. Well, no, the response to the pandemic has led to that. The baseline forecast envisions a 5.2% contraction in global GDP in 2020, the deepest global recession in a decade. Well, here's the thing, guys. You've got to realize also Australia's economy is heavily... Well, we're not very advanced, okay? If anyone says we're an advanced economy, we're not. We're a wealthy economy, but the complexity of what we're producing is 73rd out of 137th in the world. This is the Observatory of Economic Complexity, and you can just see here what we're exporting, where it's going to, what we're importing, to get an overview of our economy. And just have a look, spend some time, look at what we're exporting, and look at what we're all importing here in Australia. Per capita incomes in most emerging and developing countries will shrink this year. While our per capita growth has been down since the GFC, the growth has been below trend. We've still been growing per capita since 2008, but that growth has been below the trend, the average for the last, since we had per capita data. I looked at it on a video a while ago. The pandemic highlights the urgent need for policy action to cushion its consequences, protect vulnerable populations, and improve countries' capacity to cope with similar future events. The grim forecast comes as Australia enters its first recession in close to 3 decades. The Reserve Bank predicts our economy will contract by 6% in 2020, with World Bank economists saying that under a worst-case scenario, global GDP could shrink by almost 8%. So there you go, everyone. Potential for our GDP to fall by 5%, and calls to extend the stimulus payments. What do you think? Do you think they'll do it? Do you think they'll throw everything they can at the housing? Here, let me know in the comments, what do you think would be the most insane and stupid thing the government could do to continue to stimulate the economy? Seriously, just let's make a list and let's see what they do. $1 million for people to buy second-hand houses? Maybe they want to stimulate the car economy and they'll take perfectly good cars, crunch them into cubes, bury them, then pay you to dig them up, melt down the cars again, and then send it overseas to manufacture. What else could they do? What else could they pay people to do? They'll find a way. Maybe they could hire all these people to sit in these big buildings and just fill out forms and shuffle them around to pretend like they're actually contributing to the economy. Oh, wait a minute, that's our bureaucracy. Anyway, everyone, let me know your thoughts and opinions, please, in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you'd like to support the content I make here, there are a few ways you can. Simply sharing the videos, helping the channel grow, really helps. You can financially support us via joining the channel on YouTube or Patreon, using our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin, buying our merch from HeiseSays, using Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or supporting us via PayPal. Have a great time, everyone, and I'll see you later today.